suddenly you have a gap between what the capability can provide and what we are lagging as a society. So then the question is, who's going to own the habitat that's going to authorize Waymo to go into crime scenes or not? Because we're going to let Waymo and many others take decisions from us when we sit on robotaxis for billions of those decisions before we have the regulation capability to build the habitat.
Hi folks, James here, and welcome to the Spiro Circle, this time in collaboration with Forbes Israel. So many of my conversations are about AI and the founders that design companies that are building it or implementing it. But not many of my episodes take that topic of AI and actually apply a bit more of an ethical and theological conversation. What happens when these AI models become super powerful and start making our decisions for us? What happens when they start acting for us? So this week, I spoke to Tal Cohen all about it. Tal Cohen is the co-founder of Drive TLV, and he's also a founder and managing partner at Next Gear Ventures. So he invests in AI spaces, and he speaks to small startups and big corporates all about how the technology is changing businesses and changing offices. And he gave a very holistic, broad vantage point for how AI can change some of those things. But he also outlined something called the habitat. It's something he coined to explain the space between what AI can do and what it ends up ultimately doing. And that gap involves things like trust, accountability, governance, loads of areas that we haven't really stopped to consider. Honestly, this episode could have been 3 hours long, but I didn't want to keep Tal for too much of his time. Anyway, I really hope you enjoy. It's very interesting. Tal, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, James. Thanks for having me.
I'm super interested in our conversation now because there are so many topics and angles that I've spoken to people about when it comes to AI in quite, specific verticals or quite clear-cut approaches. And our conversation today, I think, is going to take a different angle because we're going to speak about some of the consequences of maybe some of the foundations that are taking place and changing right in front of our eyes. So it's going to be a super interesting chat. I hope I can keep up with all of it as we go. But I want to basically set the scene for the viewer or listener who may be kind of getting to know you or getting to know the conversations that take place on this show. And I want to basically address the irreversibility of AI. So we spoke ahead of this recording. We've decided, we discussed together that for the first time in our lives, humans aren't the only ones who can decide and act. And that is now taking place among machines and algorithms. So before we dive deep, Tal, why don't you please just give a bit of an overview as to how you are seeing things in the AI space and what gives you the vantage point that you have?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, James. So you mentioned irreversibility. So, irreversibility is, happened before even the AI. Okay. So, I mean, we have irreversibility in many things, and irreversibility is associated with actions. Okay. You can have actions that are reversible and actions that are irreversible. And, we humans, we take many actions that are both, basically. Okay. And the question is, who's taking the action? And I think my point to you, or that I shared before, is that what's unique about AI is the ability to take decisions and actions in a way that is not necessarily pre-planned. Okay. So you have a new sets of circumstances and you have different situations, and you have the AIs taking decisions and actions. Up to this point, for many years in history, that we know we're created to ourselves, we are the only one up to this point taking those type of decisions and actions. And suddenly, in the last few months, suddenly we have another actor that is the AI. And what we discuss is what type of action does this AI takes? Okay, is it, and we can define it to two categories. One are reversible and one irreversible. And obviously, if they are irreversible, it's more difficult to let this type of actor act in our world. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it touches on a Stoic idea. Um, one of the pillars of Stoicism is humans are in charge of their thoughts and actions, and that's the only thing they can do, and everything else that takes place in the universe outside is out of our control. So there's no point in stressing about it. I wish I adopted more of that mentality myself. It's something I'm striving towards, but it's to touch on your point, the entrance of AI in our world is affecting that very thesis that the only thing we have in our lives is our thoughts and our actions. And now we are offloading or delegating that to other things. You called AI the biggest leap, not just in our lifetime, but probably in all of human history. Bigger than the internet, bigger than the car, bigger than the printing press. I mean, we've had other leaps. What makes AI so much greater than that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that the AI represents huge leap. It's not, it's not even close to, many other things that you described, because of the sheer reason that it's taking the change that it's the thing that is taking from us. It's abstracting the consequential decisions from us, basically. Okay, so we don't even know. We will get into a situation because of AI that we will not even know what we could have decided on taking action, because the AI is going to do that. So we're going to be in the position in the future by which we need to select what we want to keep to ourselves and what we're going to delegate, so to speak. Okay, so we were never been in this type of situation before, by which even in many other situation by which we faced amazing capabilities like the electricity, or the computers, we always were at the end of the line. It was our decision to flip the switch, to click the button. In this situation with the AI, and that's it's exciting, but it's also somehow scary. Okay, at the same time, because we're going to have an amazing tool or amazing capability in our side that it can do many things faster, better than us. And based on the human history, we will be, we might be tempted and want to do that because it will work to our benefits. Can obviously do all the good things, save lives and make our life more efficient and so on, make us more prosperous. But there's a flip side to that as well.
Let's get a bit of an understanding as to why Tal Cohen is the person to be guiding us or warning us about some of these things that we're going to get into today. I want to touch on your background exactly. So you're the co-founder of Drive TLV. It's one of Israel's best-known mobility innovation platforms. And you're also the founder and managing partner of Next Gear Ventures. So you've spent time working with large enterprises, startups, academia, and you kind of mesh these worlds, right? You kind of help you connect startups with the bigger players, mainly in the mobility space, but other spaces. Talk to us a bit about your background that gave you this worldview or view on AI, I suppose.
Sure. So I'm very pragmatic. I'm a practitioner. Basically, although I spent some years in the academy, I love science and contribution and innovation, breakthrough. I do that at this point through my interaction with entrepreneurs, startups, but also with corporates. So we have, between Drive Europe and Drive Tel Aviv, we have many partners, large organizations, global leaders, both in energy, mobility, but also helping young innovators break through with technologies into the world, into those type of organizations. So that's what I'm doing. As such, I have dozens of experiences dealing with AI that are actually coming up bottom up to try to build those technologies and to make a difference with those technologies. So what I'm describing to you on a high level philosophical spectrum, those are coming from the real deal. These are nuts and bolts. I work very closely in the development, in the implementation of those AI from the startups into those large organizations. So the perspective is authentic and real. But what I'm telling you is the finding that I find, and particularly on AI, what I see, and this is what led me to this discussion, is there's a huge gap. Okay, and the huge gap is coming up because there's a tremendous growing exponential capability with AI, but there's a gap between recognizing this exponential growth capability into value and value between the startups and the corporate. It's not only between my startups and my corporates, it's all out there. Okay, there's a big gap in the deployment that is well recognized now by the industry, while the intelligence it's keep going exponentially up. The return on investment, the value derivatives, the GDP, whatever three letters you can find out that describes any end measure is not there yet. Okay, even the way look how the world is measuring success, the business model from AI today. They measure it by tokens. Okay, so tokens are representative of a computational unit, basically. Okay, so but computational unit is how much energy or computational energy you are expending or exerting. It doesn't mean how much value you get in the end. Okay, but that's the best what the AI business model today presents. Okay, so there's a gap there. So there's a lot of effort, and with merit, AI is amazing. It brings value in some areas, like in coding, like in chatbot, like to our life, how we feel it contributing to our decision making or help. But there's a huge gap in anything goes down to real hard ROI. How does it impact our end product? How does it impact the industry? Definitely on the physical side, but not alone. Not only that. So I witnessed this gap, and I try to figure out why this gap exists. Okay, and the core of this gap that I find right now is not time. It's not an element of hey, we need to get a smarter model out there because we just have to wait to better technology, because we have amazing technology already now. Okay, there's something deeper than that that went through this search of mine that led me to this type of philosophical discussion that we just had.
And so, what is the end of that line? I've got it here. I hope I'm laying you up correctly to what I think is the peak of what we're about to speak about in this context. It's your argument is basically that everyone's obsessing over these models and agents and what AI can be doing, but there is a disconnect. And so, what you've chosen to describe this disconnect, this missing layer, is the habitat. So
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but the habitat is what you describe as things like trust, permissions, governance, accountability, some of the missing gaps that are presenting themselves as AI develops the way that it develops.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So look. Let's make it simpler. Okay. Let's go back to the discussion of what we talked about AI as a decider. Okay. There's no doubt that AI can be very smart. Okay, but it's very, sometimes very smart, sometimes not so smart at all. Okay, it can be very fast. Okay, it's never fatigued, so there's a lot of advantages. It absorbs everything. Okay, it's very literal, so it has tons of upside, but also it's not, when we say smart or wise, we have a mental model in a certain way that somehow fit or doesn't fit what AI is today. Okay, but this is not the only thing. The main thing, in my humble opinion, that is preventing us from leveraging AI the way we can leverage AI is because we don't really sure exactly what the role of this AI can help, how it can help, what it can do. We understand its capability, but we are afraid of it. We want it to work with us, but it's being represented by large entities that we don't really understand. So there's a gap. The real thing is the following: we understand and we know that it can it going up, it becomes smarter and smarter. We understand that this is not the same wisdom or smartness that we, in a holistic way, look at. But we want to harness that. And the problem is that we harness this like another piece of software. Okay, we see that like almost like the extension of like SaaS or something like that, and we it's totally different. Okay, it's first of all on a technological surface, it's not the same. It's not deterministic. It comes up with some statistical models. So in other words, you can have different models come up with different answers. Sometimes give you one answer on the same question and it's going to be a different answer. So it behaves differently, and it's a long time. If you give it more data, more information, become more accurate, more relevant to you. So it has different characteristics. It's very amorphic in the way you compare it to other software solutions. So treating it the same way is a mistake, basically. Okay, on a business side, on a relationship side, on the long-term commercialization side, on purchasing side. So organization doesn't know exactly what to do with AI in that sense, and it shows. We don't have enough ROI on this. Okay, we are pretty much disappointed. The core of it is the following: it's much more capable, and it's much more. It needs more attention from us. We need almost think about it almost like we need to raise it. Okay, almost like raising it like a child. It's not a child. It's not a human at all. Okay. And we don't have any expectation from this particular element, okay, in terms of what it's going to happen, when it's going to be growing up or whatever. But the reason we need to raise it like a child, because it has the same attributes of the learning, okay? It has attributes of the learning, and the more we invested it, the more we think how we invested it, the more we supervise it, the more we understand how to authorize it in the right way, to do more as it learns more, and the more we manage to supervise it in the right way, the more we manage to develop this gradual trust. The more we develop this gradual trust, the more we have benefits from it in a way, in an exponential way. Why? Because the more you trust it under the right level of authorization, the more it performs. The more it performs, the more data it generates, the more it compounds. The more it compounds, the more value it brings. You trust it more, gain more authority. That's the loop, basically, okay? So the key word is to develop an external capability, external to the AI, basically, okay? To basically do the whole process as I just described, basically, okay? Because the whole process requires an external entity, not the AI, because it cannot self-govern. As much as the model developers, from Anthropic to the newest world model, want to be smart about what they need to do in their weights, in their learning, in the methodologies, in the secret sauce to make it smarter, an authority to act has to come from the outside. The raising has to come from the outside. Make sense?
Absolutely. And I have a bunch of follow-up questions for you.
Sure.
Who is the one that is raising the AI? Is that the folks who are creating the models, or is that at some point government that needs to step in, or those private companies, or is that us on AI agents tapping away and training our own agent what I, James, like in my responses? Like, where does the responsibility lie in fostering that habitat that you've kind of outlined?
So what I just laid out to you is something that I obviously did a lot of research about. And it's the foundation of what I call agent habitat dynamics, okay? And the habitat is the one, by the way, the idea was born from the biology or the real world, how organism developed in our world, basically. So the organism is like the agent are the organism developed in the way of evolution. They need to have the environment, the ecosystem, the habitat for them to be developed, okay? And that's basically the root for that. And because the agent, the organism, the amoeba, whatever you want to call that, had to survive exactly like what the agent has to survive, basically, okay? And in order to survive, in order to thrive, you have to have an external authority, okay? An external entity that provides the conditions, the ability, the incentives, the punishment, the whole process to evolve this particular, AI in the right way. So when you actually coming up and say, hey, who needs to be the owner of those or who needs to control those? Obviously, it's not the AI models. Okay, it has to be somebody else. So let's take a setup by which we have a regular commercial setup by which you have an entity that is buying the AI as a solution and using that. Okay, so the AI is a provider and you have the corporate. So the corporate has to own and understand and run that habitat, basically. Okay, because think about that. Okay, let's say that you have a very strong AI capability. Okay, by the way, you're going to have many of those because you're going to have many of those solutions. Yes, many of those solutions. And think about them, it's very capable. You're not going to design them and run them and let them govern themselves and work on the corporate. The corporate, before even the agent come and start, has to define the roles, responsibility, authorization, grading, records, and so on and so forth, mechanism to allow this agent to exercise what they need to exercise within those corporate limits. Okay, almost think about that almost like a government. Okay, you select a president. Okay, the president is the actor. Yes, but the president is coming into sets of constitutions, rules, responsibility, things he can do, cannot do, what he has to pass through Congress, and so on and so forth. Okay, you cannot lend somebody and then think what their authority should be. That's why the habitat has to be there. Okay,
but who sets those rules, constitutions, ethics? Like,
let's say you have a hospital. You need to make sure that your patients are being taken care of, that you're going to be insured by somebody to run the hospital. Okay, that the hospital is going to be profitable and not liable to dead on arrival by lawsuits. So you need to understand how to lay out your habitat in order for the AI to act in this habitat, basically. Okay, I can obviously expand more. So you can obviously get help. And by the way, it happens right now in the field of the robotaxis. Okay, there's a company called Waymo. Okay, very successful, deploying hundreds of thousands of rides per week. But look what happened just about a week ago, less than that. The NHTSA come up with a letter saying there are too many cases by which those Waymo cars are infringing on emergency, employees, firefighters, police. The Waymo is stuck in crime scenes or whatever is that. It's not edge cases anymore. And I'm quoting basically. Okay. So right now the capability. Why I'm talking about this now, James? By the way, because 2 or 3 years ago was not relevant because there was no capability enough to talk like that. Right now, Waymo is demonstrating wow, okay, home run capability in many places. It's expanding. So suddenly you have a gap between what the capability can provide and what we are lagging as a society. So then the question is, who's going to own the habitat that's going to authorize Waymo to go into crime scenes or not? Okay.
Exactly. So who does own that or run that or manage that? I don't even know what the right word is for that.
So it all happens too quickly. And the clock of the AI is running, and that's part of the risk. We're talking about the revolution of the civilization transition for AI that I'm alluding in some of my writings, is that it happens, unlike many others, it happens extremely quickly. And because of the consequential choice is what we abstract, it's even more dangerous. Because we're going to let Waymo and many others take decisions from us when we sit on robotaxis for billions of those decisions before we have the regulation capability to build the habitat. That's exactly the point. Regulator, the municipalities, the DOTs, NHTSA will not be able to build the habitat on time to, enforce not just Waymo, or the next 8, 9 of them in the next 5 years are going to come and going to dominate the streets. So it has to be a combination of private-public type of collaboration. Somebody has to very quickly develop this habitat for the robotaxis environment, maybe within those consortium of corporates, maybe with some entrepreneurship, maybe with somebody else, and that has to be maybe prescribed by the regulator and then adopted by the regulator. And by the way, it's unprecedented. The time we're sitting is unprecedented because this is going to be habitats and the construction. We're going to live in the centuries or decades of habitat constructions. People really don't get it yet. It's not about the AI developing because the models are running and they're going to commoditize. That's what happened now. Between OpenAI and Anthropic, they're running after those top models, but so much congestion is behind them with the Chinese opens, with the Llamas opens. So you have many, many capabilities going up. So the edge is going to be super unique, but it's going to be commoditization all around behind them. And the work is going to be who is going to be able to harness this model to their favor. And the one that's going to be harnessed is the one who's going to generate the right habitat to harness that. Exactly what we see now with the robotaxis.
Wow. So why is it that people... Why is this unique then? Why are you and I having this conversation and no one else, right? Are there other conversations that are taking place in different corners? And I want to get into a very specific corner with you in a bit after this, because there is a direction that this is taking that I want to kind of lead us into. But why are no governments talking about habitats? Why are no private companies talking about it? I mean, we know there's a race to the top, as there is with any new technology, and AI probably has a few of those concerns among people that think they understand it, but also think they don't or know they don't. Why is no one else talking about the need for a habitat in your language?
So I gave you the hint, in my humble opinion, in the beginning. The beginning is the following. First of all, we just start to have the capacity, the capability coming up. So no, and by the way, it's extremely shiny, bright, and amazing, the capability. Okay. The habitat is boring. Okay. It's a layer that is basically authorization, graded authorization. You have to create a record of what's happening. Okay. You have to connect action to consequences. This is not amazing breakthrough science. Okay. This is not a new intelligence. It's extremely less sexy. Okay. But it's so instrumental for the success of this AI. And only when you have the capability knocking on your door and you don't understand what you don't have ROI, somebody, in this case, I don't know, it's me, okay, says you need that, okay? By the way, I'm sure there are going to be some people going to say A or B or C. Okay, let's hear it, okay? By the way, don't think that there are no, in many places like the robotaxis or the flight industry, there are people thinking about safety or ODDs or mechanism, but in order to facilitate AI to work, the habitat needs to be first-class object that is equivalent and sometimes even before AI comes into consideration, as we just discussed, okay? If you want to bring AI in a massive way to industrial corporation, you have to build habitat that is including exactly like what you do with the Constitution and elected officials. You have to define the roles, responsibilities, authorities, boundaries, and protection mechanism in order to let the AI loose, basically. Otherwise, you have a loose cannon. Or the opposite of a loose cannon is a genius in a cement cage, basically, okay? These are the two options. You choose. Without habitat, you either put somebody in the basement, don't let it do what it can do, or let it destroy your business, take decision that you don't know what's going to happen.
The way you're describing is it's kind of like, and I've done a bit of work on this recently, which is a lot of people are saying that one of the bottlenecks for AI is infrastructure, right? Like there's so much software potential, but we just don't have the physical infrastructure, whether it's in the data centers themselves or the physical kind of technology to harness it. What you're basically arguing is that the bottleneck isn't just physical AI. The bottleneck is kind of everything, because we need to create this habitat, to use your word and the word of biology, but to establish this new playing field that encompasses a bottleneck of physical AI, but also the bottleneck of, as you said, of ethics, of regulations, of participation to maintain a healthy society. Is that accurate?
So first of all, it's accurate. It's accurate that there's a bottleneck of infrastructure, but I want to be more specific. Okay, you described all what you just described can be mostly fitted under the category infrastructure. Okay, so let's start with the shiny object, the intelligence. Okay, the one that are the frontier models are leading, and world models are following. I'm not arguing with that. Absolutely amazing, necessary, exponential growth. And you mentioned we need energy, we need cooling, we need all the infrastructure on the energy side and the manufacturing side and the capability side. And then come people say we have a deployment gap. Okay, that's the most common terms now, either in physical AI or AI, and then you start get into this question. Oh, is it about irreversibility or consequential? Is it industrial? Is going to be on this side of the AI or the other side of the AI? It's actually general. Okay, and then we throw into the mix, things like governance, authority, and I think here we need to be more specific. And if you follow the logic, you understand it is actually on a conceptual level not that complicated. On implementation level, it's heavy. Okay, and I'll explain now in details. You basically have an agent that is very smart and very quick. Okay, and we as humans, we don't have the capability to, before it takes a decision, to understand why it took the decision and follow up during the decision, because it's just going to take it quickly, and that's their superstar. That's why they are really good. Okay, not in everything, but in many things, and in many ways we wanted to do that because it can save life or can do things for us. So the question is how we humans that we have different clock actually work with this agent that has much faster clock. So we need to develop a mechanism, and that's part of the foundation of this concept I call habitat, that has two different clocks that have the intersection. But it's not only two different clocks. It's two different sovereignties. One is the engineering sovereignty, and the other one is the institutional sovereignty. Okay, because behind those clocks, there are there's the capability to create the capability to change reality in a way that's going to be beneficial, which is what the AI can do. Okay, you need to act quickly, wisely, in a way that we never seen before. But in order to make it authorized, ethical, in a way that's going to respect human rights while it's doing the contribution it's doing, it has to be supervised and governed and authorized in a graded way. So the mechanism is the following. You need to have the four following components. Number one, before any AI even thought or introduced into the equation, the organization, if it's going to be our Department of Transportation, if it's going to be our factory, if it's going to be our hospital, has to define very clearly what are the allowable or not allowable, the constraints, the do's and not, okay, that we allow this particular agent to do or not to do, okay? And then after we have this very well defined in terms of constraints, we need to sit down and define the following mechanism. We need to understand firsthand from the outside, without trusting or believing or getting the data from the AI itself about what the AI is doing. Why taking decision, okay? What the results of these decisions, okay? Who authorized to take this decision, okay? If there was something wrong, who is responsible? So sets of questions that needs to become from the outside towards the AI needs to be asked. So we need to develop the right mechanism to capture those, okay? And in the heart of things, we're going to have a record. What is a record? The record is the ultimate. Whatever is written in extremely detailed level of what happens, when it happened, and how it happened, okay? And then on top of that, we need to have some sort of graded authority, some entity that is human, that works by a different clock, that says, oh, we checked all this evidence layer and say, oh, you know what? This agent, after a week, is doing a good job. We can upgrade the level of authority or decrease the level of authority. And so you need the mechanism to connect the consequences to the actions via those type of series of mechanisms I described. And then you have to have a human in this area, or a committee, or somebody that's going to basically build this trust. Why? Because that's the mechanism for us to have a mechanism of trust in this agent. And that is the core of the habitat, James. And then there's further decisions that, okay, who's going to own this? Who's going to see that? And what condition going to see that? We can get into that, but that's basically giving every authority, every entity, the right level of access to decide how this thing is going to be run. But what I just described to you is the essence of the first class habitat that I'm introducing now.
Wow. Wow, it's amazing. Thank you so much. You've been so clear in the kind of, I guess, technical infrastructure that needs to be in place to tackle one of these things. I do want to take it more. I do want to kind of lean into some of the ways that conversations are spilling out in different ways with the very theme that you've outlined. So I'm kind of imagining this now as two sides of the same coin. I want to bring in something a few days ago that Dean Ball tweeted. Dean Ball is the head of strategic futures at OpenAI, and on July 11 he tweeted saying, "There comes a time in every AI policy professional's life when they realize they have to read the Talmud to make further progress." And for me, that time was this week. It was a big tweet. At least it blew up in my circles. Everyone was kind of interacting with it or talking about it. And it spurred quite a bit of conversation in the AI space, most notably from a feature that took the words of Judd Rosenblatt. So I'm just getting my notes up, which is why I'm a bit, I'm pausing a bit while I just get my notes up. There was a piece out on Forward about Judd Rosenblatt's AI Alignment Foundation. And he basically sat with a journalist and he spoke about some of the ways that AI policy is being designed to tackle some of the things that you and I have been outlining in the last, in the first bit of this episode. He says that his bet is that Judaism, and so the Talmud from there, Judaism might hold clues for AI alignment because Jewish tradition survives total ruptures like temple destruction, exile, by constantly reinterpreting itself while keeping the core intact. Have you come across any ideas like this in your reading or in your research? The idea that there are Jewish values and there are experiences in Judaic practices or writings that align with, if you pardon the pun, that align with AI strategy.
So, I think it's all end up about, that's what's fascinating about what the AI is giving us right now to think about. Okay, it's really bringing up why somebody think about the thought that you just shared, James. When somebody starts sharing that, AI alignment is about principles in the Talmud or coming from the root of Judaism, is they identify some sorts of analogous characteristics between a challenge or rising capability and the dilemmas that we are encountering, basically how to deal with the situation. On one hand is a coming capability. On the other hand, we need to share this powers with the society. How it can become both commercially available, ethical, not concentrated in some forms, and somehow evenly distributed. This capability is giving us ample of challenges to think about. And we are looking at the mirror, basically, James. Okay, we're looking at the mirror and try to ask ourselves who we are. Okay, and I think these are the questions that when you have a player like AI joining us in this circle of life, like this is doing now, you cannot deny that. These are bringing us this type of existential questions, and so this transition of the AI is going to impact not only the way we live, but also who we are to this level. Okay. And I think that the examples you just laid out is a classical example. I mean, what does it mean exactly, best at, the alignment of AI based on Judaism principles? Okay. I mean, what exactly does it mean? It means that you have to look at the 10 commandments. It means that you have to, come up with with some sort of abstraction of super entity. I mean, what exactly are we trying to map into? Okay. So I think those type of questions are coming up because you have this introduction of this capability into our life. What I do think it translates into, for me, particularly that the discussion is that let's assume for a second that what we talk about is real. In other words, so that for the AI to be successful, it has to be counter with another first-class object called habitat. Okay. Then who controls that? How is it going to impact our life? How is it can be accountable? how it cannot be focused on a single entity to create, anomalies and, benefit for some and not for others, okay? While being productive and moving everybody in a prosperous way. So I like to take this type of discussion into, while we're creating it, let's create it right, so to speak, okay? So right means successful in a totally capitalistic commercial fashion, but also in a human way, by which we manage to, not step on anybody, okay? Understand that we have, human rights that we established for millennia based on different layers of, philosophies and theologies and cultures. And we want to build on top of that, not destroy that. So I think that's what we need to decide to do when we build both AI and the habit.
It shows there's a lot more humanity behind AI, and there's a lot more, I suppose, psychology and philosophy and theology behind some of the discussions that are setting now. And we're not just, these algorithms, so many people have been placing faith in the algorithms, but people need to be looking as to where that faith is coming from, and then setting those foundations correctly. One more idea I just wanted to point out, and then we'll move on to the final part of our conversation, is the idea of covenant. So it's the idea that something is inherited, but also we have to step in and lean into it. So it's both ways, and that's kind of like the power of AI. Like it's kind of, we're going to inherit this huge power, but we also need to step into the infrastructure and safety mechanisms and world that facilitates a healthy and prosperous use. I do want to land on one last area of our conversation today, which is all of this that we've discussed and all of this that we've outlined is what you have basically described as the fourth transition. So electrification being the first, telecommunications being the second, digitization being the third, and now AI. Each changed our relationship to something basic, right? Whether it was energy or distance, memory. What is AI representing in this fourth transition, and what is it adding or changing to our lives in the context of the transition?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that by the way, just because you when you touched the covenant, so I mean, I think that, and that touches back to the transition, and I call it intelligentization. I know it's a difficult word, but it's a mouthful. Maybe it's not the easiest one. Maybe it's not even the correct one. But I will explain more. Basically, the key, James, is I think that the puzzle is easier to solve, not when you put it on the fate of the weights or the way of the enigmatic intelligence model is going to dictate our life to us. The habitat that I'm describing, by allocating authority, by creating the records, by the understanding how the AI is getting those graded authority that is being controlled by human or human entities, that's something that you just not, allocate to luck or allocate to some enigmatic wisdom. We can decide who is looking at these records, who is deciding the decisions to improve the AI impact on our life or not. Everything is our control. Okay, I don't see that's part of the mechanism. Okay, that's part of the call for the habitat. In order to be in control of our destiny in a way we want to have it, we have to have this agent habitat dynamics. So let's now, after we have this right, okay, after we have this compounding, in other words, organizations that be able to compound the AI power through the mechanism of the habitat, they're going to get into a situation by which they are having a unique competitive advantage. Why? Okay, because the AI powers is anticipation. You basically, with the amazing models that are keep improving, and the data and the records and the evidence you are collecting that is relevant to you from all AI solutions that are helping you in your organization, is going to give you such ability to look ahead of what is in front of you that you basically will be able to see what's going to happen in the future. I call it a consequences window, okay? Because the AI is going to be smart. It's going to know, hey, based on what I see, something is going to happen in the next 30 seconds, in the next 3 weeks, in the next 3 days. And by the way, if it's going to happen, you're going to have a harm to your organization. This machine is going to break. Okay, this wheel is going to blow off. Something is going to, you lose this customer. Okay, or you're going to have opportunity to win a customer. Okay, and each one of those windows is going to be very, in a certain degree of confidence, and with a price tag on it, basically. Okay, so those windows are going to be belonging more to the people who are going to deploy more AI. But remember, we just talked about a way to deploy AI. You have to trust AI. You have to raise AI. So it's not going to be just deployed. It's going to be an AI that you can trust. How do you trust it? Via the habitat. So once you have the combination of the trust, AI, and the habitat, you're going to have compounding knowledge. You're going to have more of those windows. Okay. What is those windows are doing? They're abstracting time. Okay. So like electrification, abstracted energy, communication, abstracting distance, digitization, abstracted memory, the AI and the intelligentization is abstracting time, but a specific time. It's this time window by which we know things are going to happen until this consequences window is hardened, until something is actually locked. So I have time by which I know something is going to happen until something is happening. Okay. And that time, 5 seconds to, can be maybe much more, is the one that is the intelligentization or the AI is abstracting. But it's actually even more, because it's not just, it's a specific time. It's a time by which the AI can decide and act. It happens back to Waymo, okay? When you're sitting in a Waymo, the radar of the Waymo or the LiDAR is seeing something far away. It avoids that, and you don't even notice that. So you in the car, you can, read your phone or whatever, and the Waymo is doing something. You don't even know what Waymo did, but it abstracted the action, the consequential action from it. So let's just give you a hint of what's going to happen in the future. We will sit wherever we sit, and there are going to be things that are avoided in our life that we didn't know that should have happened, basically, okay? So the intelligentization is abstracting the consequences, the action of the consequences, consequential action. So that's really the point that people have to understand. An organization that will be able to see more of those windows and are the one going to be avoiding them or making them happen, if you want them, are the ones going to have a tremendous competitive advantage.
So what's one question, as a kind of final big picture overview, what's one question that an organization or a founder should be asking before deploying technology like AI that can be so consequential that it is irreversible? What's something they should be looking out for?
So if you're on the side of the AI provider, you need to know the chances for you to successfully grow your value in a customer is by having the habitat ready for you. Okay? So you have to ask the following questions. Okay? Mr. Customer, you should tell me ahead of time what you want my agent to do or not to do. Okay? You should tell me exactly what lessons should I feed back to retrain my model. Okay? I will tell you if it's enough for me or I need from you more. Okay? Then you should tell me what indication you have that I bring you value. Okay? So these are questions that, and then who's going to be owner of the consequences? Okay? Because if I'm going to impact with my AI in your organization with consequences, I want to have a co-owner on your side as well. Because I don't want to be the only one that carry that. I want to make sure that you have the right infrastructure ready for me. So I want to start very low on your trust, and I want to earn that, me as a vendor. Because if I'm over assuming, then I'm about to fail. Okay, I want to earn the trust right, and I want to earn value right. So I will insist on having some infrastructure there that will have it as successful together.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you. Tal, those are approaching the end of our questions and the end of our time that we've had today. Unfortunately, we could go in 100 different directions about some of the ways that AI is changing both the physical and software and theological and societal questions ahead of us. I do want to end how I often do, which is with a quick fire round. So I've got some questions here And I want you just to kind of answer back in as quickly and as shortly as possible, just to get a few last few ideas from your mind. So, AI model or habitat, which one wins in the next 5 years?
Habitat. Why? Because models are changing. Habitat, you build compound in time.
Bubble, godsend, or joke? Which one best describe AI right now?
Neither. It's look, it's a bubble, true. It's a godsend. I don't know. Okay. A joke. It's not a joke. So it's the most accurate answer is probably a bubble because from the option you give me. Okay.
Yeah. But
It's in the bubble.
options I gave you. But AI is everything, right? It can be. It's what it is to someone is what it's different to someone else, and so
AI is. I agree. AI is a capability that everything else that you just described is a reflection of how we look at that. But honestly, AI by itself is amazing capability.
Okay. What's riskier? AI that decides but can't act, or acts but can't explain why?
Acts. If AI acts, it's dangerous. Okay, because again, it's consequences. Okay, so that's very risky.
What's the next AI transition? Oh, sorry, pardon me. Final question. The next AI transition will be won by what?
By whoever is managed to implement habitats.
I love that. Full circle. Tal, I have one last question for you. What is the best way for anyone who's listening or watching today to follow you or stay up to date or catch all of your writings that you've done? You've written tremendously about all of these topics. Where can people find some of the things to learn more?
Thanks very much, James. First of all, I appreciate everything, the time and the exhilarating discussion. I appreciate the very deep and quick questions. I think we covered tons of ground. So you can find me talcohen.ai. Okay, that's I put a lot of my material there. I'm active somehow in LinkedIn and maybe more soon. And I'm also have a book as well. Okay, coming up. It's called The Case for Habitat.
Definitely. The case for habitat, we didn't speak about it enough, but you outline all of these ideas, and I can be sure to put a link there directing people to where they need to go. Tal, thank you so much for your time and insights today. I'm looking forward to connecting with you in a couple of years, and we'll see how much of the habitat has been built, or how doomed we are, or how free we are, or any of the promising or scary futures that AI has in front of us will be in one of them. So I look forward to meeting with you in there.
My pleasure. Me too, James. Take care.
Thanks.